It's time again for the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast with Dr. John Dentico. The mission of our podcast is to provide 21st century leadership training for a talent-driven world. We help organizations implement strategies and practices designed to attract, hire, engage, and retain top talent while mitigating the effects of burnout. Our guests are experts in various fields of organizational dynamics, including, but not limited to, leadership management, communication, and coaching. They bring a world of knowledge and solutions to our viewers and listeners. I am sincerely grateful for their participation and ideas. What are the 5 factors that contribute to happiness at work? Happiness and contentment really the same? How important is it that the organizations and the employees' values align? If any of these questions interest you, then I am confident that my conversation with Richard Clarke, founder of the Spanish IT company Secret Source, will provide insights, inspiration, and what it takes to be happier at work. So let's dive in. And if you enjoy our podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. We genuinely appreciate your support. Hello, and welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. I'm Dr. John Dentico, your host. Today, my guest is Mr. Richard Clarke. Richard is the founder and ex-chief executive officer of Secret Source, an IT company based in Spain. In 2014, he had a theory. If he set up a company whose main KPIs were team and client happiness, then the team would collaborate together better, be more aligned with their clients, and perform better. And all the traditional measures of success, profit, revenue, growth would naturally follow. For 10 years, Richard studied the science of happiness in the workplace and applied it in his company. In 2022, with almost 50 employees, Richard handed over the role of CEO, and he now dedicates his life to sharing his knowledge. He writes, speaks, and teaches leaders and organizations how to use the science of happiness and well-being to build better teams. I am very pleased to have Richard with me here today. I want to thank him for his time. Richard, how are you today?
I'm wonderful, yes, in Spain, and it's lovely and sunny, so can't complain.
Great to hear it. Richard, let's get down to it, as they say. I'd like to ask you, the first question I want to ask you is, can you characterize what you mean by happiness in the workplace?
Wow, okay, big question to start with. So happiness in the workplace. So happiness is a really difficult one to define. I think it's that inner feeling of sort of contentment that you have. And so for me, when I talk about happiness in the workplace, I'm talking about the responsibility of leaders to create an environment where their team can be happy. So that's what I do. Yeah. So you can't make everybody happy, but you can create an environment which maximizes the chances of them being happier.
That's great. It's simple, but very direct. What's interesting, you already mentioned the word I wanted to follow up on. I'll get back to that later on. Let me ask you this. How can an organization create happiness in the workplace? What are the necessary elements for creating a happy workplace?
Okay. So the first thing, so in my opinion, the first thing you need to do is you want to actually, it needs to be important to you. Okay. I see lots of companies where they put it on their About Us page or LinkedIn. Yeah, we want our team to be happy, but they don't actually really mean it. It's just a thing they say. So the first thing is it has to be important to you. And then you have to understand what actually makes people happy, right? Putting a big red sofa in your reception, right, is probably not going to make much difference to the happiness of your employees. Okay. Having big parties every so often, it'll make a little difference, but it won't have substantial long-term effect on the happiness. So second thing you have to do is understand what actually makes people happy. And there are 5 things there. They have to feel safe, part of a community, have to feel a sense of purpose, autonomy. They have to feel autonomy in their work, and that they're going to grow in the company. So look at those 5 things. And then you have to understand your company? What's your culture? What are your stuff like? Everybody is different. And you might already have an amazing team in your company and they might work really well together. So you have to understand what you do well and then and what needs improving. And then after that, after you've got an understanding of what actually, once you know what makes people happy, once you know what you do well, you can then just try little experiments here and there. Maybe get some, you've noticed that your team, they're not really a sense, there's no sense of community in your team. So little things like get big tables for their lunch. So they all sit together for lunch. Maybe they're lacking a sense of purpose. Give them, help them improve your sort of recognition, the way you recognize the achievements of people, things like that. Yeah.
Okay, great. It's interesting because you and I are, as I like to say, I use the metaphor, we're orbiting around the same planets.
Yeah.
And one of the lessons I learned very young, probably the best piece of advice I got for being a leader and doing
Hmm.
leadership was that if you take care of your people will take care of you.
Yeah. Totally agree. Yeah.
And I've echeloned that up a little bit to say, I think here's where we connect directly. And
Mhm.
that is you have to create an environment where people come to do their best work every single day.
Yeah.
And that really, to me, is leadership at its best. It's this environmental caring
Hmm.
where people can come and feel like they're part of something, if you will, bigger than themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Let me just ask you this next question because I
Okay.
think you've answered it, but I'd like you to let's peel that onion
Okay.
back a little more, okay?
All right.
In terms of connection to happiness, how
Mm-hmm.
important are trust and a sense of purpose to the creation of a happy workplace?
Yeah, both are very important. Both are part of the sort of five areas you need to look at. So for me, there's two areas of trust. First, as an employer, as an employee, you need to feel your employer trusts you to do their work, right? So you have to feel that you have ownership of your work and that you have, and then you have to feel, then you have to be able to trust your employers. It's a two-way thing. And I think that is really important. Without, if you don't feel that your employee trusts you to do your work, if you're constantly being micromanaged, yeah, it doesn't help. And I think for happiness and for performance, yeah, you need to feel that you have ownership of your work. And the second point was purpose. Yes, there's a lot of talk about purpose at the moment, and there's a lot of pressure that you have to know your what's your purpose in life and what's your meaning in life. And for many years, I didn't know my purpose, and I felt a bit lost. And I felt that I was the only one, and everyone else knew why they were on the planet and what their purpose was. And if you have a sense of purpose, I think that is amazing. And you will be able to do much better work and you will feel much happier. But if you don't know what your purpose is, that's okay too. That's okay too. As long as you understand why you're doing your work and you feel you're being recognized for it and you know that you're making a little difference, I think that's fine too. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Let me share a thought with you. In terms of trust, I now talk
Mhm.
about mutual trust. And while it seems, and I agree with you,
Mhm.
I think it begins in two stages, but there's a third stage to it.
Oh,
Okay, and the first stage, of course, as you said clearly, is that the leader has to trust the people that or the group, and then the group has to trust the leader. Okay, and that's normally how we see it. But
mhm.
there's a third element to this, and that's that the trust has also have to be involved with all the people in the group. They have to trust one another. So the third element is mutual trust, where there's a
Mhm.
mutuality of trust within the group. Because every group, every department in an organization, every subset is a system unto itself. And an organization is a system of systems. And if you
Mhm.
don't have mutual trust, that group may be dragged down by that one person who somehow is not trusted or doesn't trust everybody else. It's the old car battery analogy. You have six cells in a car battery. If one of the cells is bad, this battery is only as strong as the weakest cell.
Yeah.
So in the same way, mutual trust is for me an action, taking action. It's more than
Hmm.
just a behavior, it's an action
Yeah.
where people build trust together. And it's very, I've learned that through the years that what I strive to do in my work now is to help organizations realize how important mutual trust is.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that, Richard?
Well, you were in the Navy, so I imagine that when you were in your teams, that there was a huge amount of trust with each other because you're basically, yeah, trusting each other's lives with you. Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's
Yeah.
where I learned, as I said to you earlier, this simple thing of you have to, you take care of your people, take care of you. People
Yeah.
think in the military, all you do is run around and give orders, bark
Hmm.
orders.
Yeah.
No, it's
Right.
not how it works.
No.
It will never work that way. And because the fuel of any organization, of any group is trust. If you don't have trust, you have nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You're done. So I agree with you completely. I think that's a point taken. One of the things that I talk about often lately is this notion of alignment of values. And that seems to be very big, a driving force in many organizations. How important do you think it is for an organization and the people to be aligned in their values?
Very important. There we go. There's the short answer. Very important. And I think the key is when someone joins a company, when you're recruiting people, you have to make sure that they're going to fit in with your company. So in our company, for example, the core value is that we work together. We believe that the happier we are, the better the work we'll do. So there has to be a lot of trust and there has to be a lot of mutual respect in the company. You have to work together. You cannot work solo. We got to recognize each other. And someone who doesn't believe in that just won't fit into our culture and won't work with our teams. So alignment of values, I think, is maybe not critical, but close to critical. If you're going to have a really high performing team, a really high performing company, yeah, you all have to have the same values. I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Or similar,
Yeah.
very similar values. I mean,
Very
not
similar. Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
the same, but yeah,
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
agree with that completely.
Yeah.
A funny thing, Richard, you're not going to
Mhm.
probably believe this, but I've given a
Okay.
lot of thought to happiness over
Okay.
my career and over my life. And this is the way I see it. There's three places, and I'm going to ask you for your comment when I finish.
Okay.
There's three places that a person can live in their psyche, in their psychology, if you will.
Hmm.
Number one is what we call sadness, right?
Hmm.
You can be sad all the time, or you can feel washed out, burned out, whatever. You're sad. The second one, as you so aptly point out, is happiness. You can be happy all the time. You can be happy most of the time, maybe not all the time. But there's
Hmm.
a third place that I think we don't talk about. It's there, it's vivid, and that is a place called contentment.
Hmm.
And where maybe we're not running around high-fiving each other every 5 minutes, but things are good. We're comfortable. Life is good. I feel good. The family's good, that kind of a thing. And where you feel you're comfortable in your own skin and you're content. So I wanted to ask you this, and I think you've already alluded to it in the first question is, what do you see in the differences between, do you see a difference between happiness and contentment?
So I'm often asked the question, what if you're to do one thing in your life, what's the most important thing you can do to make yourself happier? And I strongly believe you just be grateful for what you have, right? Be content with what you have and not pin your happiness on something happening. I'll be happy when I finish building my house. I'll be happy when I get this promotion. I'll be happy when I lose 5 pounds. And I find myself, and we all have ups and downs and the bad days. And I come home, with my family, with my kids, and I think how lucky I am. And I think if you can really appreciate what you have, then I think that is when you're going to be content. And that's when you're going to be, I don't know the difference between happiness and contentment. I think you caught me there, but I believe that the secret to being happy is being content.
That's great. Great. I was
Yeah.
going to ask if you saw a difference. And
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you completely.
Mm,
I think
okay.
people have, I think there's a, if I could say this, a lack of recognition
Hmm.
of the word contentment
Okay.
and what it really means. People don't talk about contentment. We talk about happiness. But to me, this may be heresy to some, happiness and sadness can be fleeting.
Yeah, yeah.
You're happy, and then all of a sudden, maybe you're not so happy, and you think something's wrong when
Hmm.
perhaps maybe you're just content. And that's okay too. That's really great. And I agree. We spend so much time chasing happiness, and that you're right. If I only had this promotion, if I only made this much more money, if I only lived in that house and not in this house, boy, would I be happy. But I think you have to find happiness within your own world, within your own context. And within that, the contentment of where you are. And I think you've achieved a great deal of happiness, if you will.
Yeah, I think so. And if you look at all of the studies, especially among, there's a great study on lottery winners, right? You think, oh, wow, if I win the lottery, I'll be happy. Yes, for that first couple of months, when you get the new Porsche and you move into the house with a swimming pool, yeah, you are happier. But it soon drops back. It soon drops back to what you were before, or even below what you were before, because yeah, you're not content with what you've got.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's a reflection on the studies that have been done on promotions and pay.
yeah.
Uh, People say, if I had more money, I'm doing a presentation and I'm talking about burnout and burnout in industries. What's causing that? How do you get your arms around it? And some people believe that if they got paid more money, this would alleviate the problem. And of course, my answer is no, it won't. There's a study that has said for years that 6 months after a person gets 10% pay raise, they want 10% more.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
so the money thing is, hey, listen, money's important when
yeah,
you
yeah.
think it's important. Um, when someone is being paid $5 for a job and another person is being paid $55 for the same job, we got an issue here. There's a problem. There's a real problem
Yeah,
here. We need to get to. But at the same time, it won't fix all the problems, especially a contentment problem,
yeah, yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah, so the money's a funny one. So if you don't have enough money to feed your family or you don't have enough money to buy clothes, yeah, more money will make you happier. And actually, the more money you have, or the recent studies, there was a new study came out last year that said it actually continues going up, as in, but there is a point. I think it's like $120,000 joint salary in the UK in the US. After that, it has very little effect, and other things have a bigger effect on it. Going out with your friends more often, having dinner with your brother or sister, that will have more effect on your happiness than getting an extra $10,000 a year.
I
That's the
agree. And for the folks who are not making that, I can
yeah,
understand how important
yeah,
money would be. Uh, I've lived it
yeah,
in
yeah,
my family as well growing up. We just barely made ends meet, but we somehow soldiered through, if you will. Let me ask you our final question here, if I can, and I've alluded to it. And
yeah. Okay.
I think you've already talked a little bit about that. And that is simply this. If you could change one thing in the workplace, if you had a magic wand and could wave it against an issue or a problem, why don't you give us a few more ideas on what that issue would be and why?
So I've noticed over the last few years, probably the last sort of 10, 15 years, that companies are saying we want our teams to be happier. And there's more research coming out that happier teams, they perform better, they stay together longer. There's one study last year that showed they even have better share performance. So the stats are there to show that if you make your teams happier, it's better for your company all around. What I would like to see is that companies make their teams happier because it's the right thing to do, not because it's going to improve the bottom line, not because they're going to have better growth, but because it's the right thing to do. As a business owner, you have a responsibility to your staff, and that's what I would like to see. That people, yeah, the They just feel responsible for their staff and they want to make them happier for the right reasons. That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, I know because organizations and pretty much everyone has a mission statement.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to have a mission statement. It's another thing to live it.
Yeah.
And they do all the, as you pointed out before, put in a bigger couch,
Hmm.
have dress down Fridays, get-togethers, breakfasts for the people, at on specific Fridays or whatever. And while that's nice,
Hmm.
the question is, does it really contribute to an overall level of raising an overall level of happiness or contentment at the
Yeah.
work? And for me, having done this work for over 30 years, one of the problems I see, and you see this coming across all kinds of documents, and is that, yeah, we do need new models of leadership and models of leadership that are based on creating an environment where people come to do their best work every day
Yeah.
and not just on, and believe me, getting the numbers are important, but if you're driven by the numbers, but you're driving people out the door because you're burning them out, thinking there's more talent to be had, you need a check
Yeah. Yeah.
because the talent wars, at least in the US and in the UK, are ongoing, trying to find good people and bring them into the organization and hanging on to them,
Yeah. Yeah.
retaining them. I agree with you.
It's difficult though. So we started our company, what, 10 years ago. And my philosophy was, yeah, main KPI was team happiness. And I shouted it out and I thought I was doing it. And then probably what, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, we had a client that didn't make our team happy. And I was trying to fix it. I was trying to fix it. And we were in a board meeting and I was saying, we should try to do this. And someone in Rachel, who was a project manager at the time, she said to me, if you really believe that team happiness is the most important thing and will drive success of this company, we need to get rid of this client because it's not making our team happy. And she said, and if you don't get rid of this client, it shows to me that team happiness isn't the most important thing and we have to remove it from our website. And that was like a big, okay, I'm saying it, but I'm not really doing it. I'm doing it, but I'm not really doing it. And that was a big wake up call for me. And now it's just the first question we ask. And once you have it as your actual values, your actual mission, and you live by it, then I think you just make better companies, just better companies. Yeah.
And credit to you for listening,
Thank you.
for taking it in and listening. There are a lot of CEOs and senior managers, senior leaders who won't just push it aside.
Yeah.
No,
It's
it's
difficult
all,
though. Yeah.
go ahead.
It's a difficult decision because you're putting we're 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 brought up to think that success is bigger profits, bigger growth, bigger revenue. That's what we think is success, and that's what every day on YouTube, on news, it's this company's successful because of it's got more revenue, more profit than last year, and so it's rammed down our throat the whole times. But is that the best measure of success? No, I don't know. I
I
don't think
think,
so.
yeah, I think if you have a thriving company and people are happy, you're doing business, you're making profit. Hey,
Yeah.
I think I might be misquoting here, but I remember in way back in the Moses of management, Peter Drucker,
Okay.
who once said, "A company's job is not to make as much money as it can. The job of a company is to make sure it doesn't lose any money." And I think there's a certain level of great wisdom there. I'm a great
Yeah.
fan of Peter Drucker. And that I remember that. So somebody will probably look at the podcast and say, "You're wrong." And this is the guy who said that. And what's wrong with you? But I remember Drucker saying something to that effect. And that's, again, I think there's a great level of wisdom there. And I think
Mhm.
when you talk about values alignment, the other two factors that I talk about are
Mm.
people want to be involved in the decision-making processes of the organization. They want to be
Yeah.
involved. They want to matter. They want their work to matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the third thing is they want training and learning that
Yeah.
helps them develop their personal, professional lives.
Yeah.
And if you concentrate on those three, you're really targeting in on what their requirement is for talent. And I believe that if you do a good job at that, you'll hang on to them. They'll stay with you. And the investment you put into them will come back to you many times because turnover, as I'm sure,
Mhm.
costs a lot of money. People leave and go someplace else. You put 2 or 3 years into them and they go
Yeah.
someplace else. You've lost a lot of capability.
Yeah. 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 Totally agree with you. Totally agree.
Great.
Yeah.
Listen, Richard, thank you so much for your time today. You've been a great
Thank you.
guest, and I appreciate being able to talk to you in Spain. And I hope you're having a good day, you and your family. And thank you for your comments. And I think it was an incredibly worthwhile opportunity for me and for my guests and viewers and listeners to hear about what it takes to create happiness in the workplace. So to all my
Thank you.
viewers and listeners, this is Dr. John Dentico signing off, saying thank you for tuning into the Throttle Up Leadership podcast, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thanks so much.